Well, Max, I was out at the Rose Bowl, and I thought I'd seen pretty much everything when they lost to UCLA, but they were just getting started on their nightmare scenario. Penn State not only lost to Northwestern, they lost their quarterback for the year. I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to figure out there's going to be some significant changes as far as leadership, and I'm not talking about the players. I don't know that James Franklin has very much longer here at Penn State. I think it's pretty safe to say after you lose 3 in a row, you lose to a 24-point underdog and a 21-point underdog at home. They were booing him off the field. He looked and sounded like a guy who knew his time at Penn State was about up. He said it was his most experienced, most complete team. For them to play like this and lose to these two teams, I don't think there's any decision really to be made. The only question is, when will the decision be made to move on?
Yeah, I mean, that's the difficult part, right? Because the buyout is potentially a factor, but it's pretty much gotten to the point where this is
untenable.
This is the end. Untenable was the word I was going to use. I saw a stat too, Bob, just now. Franklin is the first head coach in college football history to lose back-to-back games as a 20-plus point favorite. And this one comes at home, on homecoming, where the crowd was booing him from the start of the game. And the difference as well, against Oregon when the Fire Franklin chants started breaking out, it was right here in the student section where we're sitting. This time today, it was all the adults out in the crowd who had just been fed up. There's been a lot of success under James Franklin at Penn State, but this has gotten to a point where the things that he brings you as a head coach, beating all the teams you're supposed to beat, being at the top end of the Big Ten, always with a chance to break through, that's not what this is. And in the context of a team that he thought was his best, he said was his best, you can't move on like that.
Yeah, and the thing, there was a year, but it was the COVID year. They started, I think they started 0-5, or 0-4, whatever it was.
Yep.
And whatever it was, and that it was a COVID year, and there was really not anything that you could do about it. They weren't a complete team. Micah opted out. Journey Brown got hurt, and they eventually righted the ship, but the expectations were not quite as intense as they were this year. So it's only a question of time when this decision is made. There's going to be a lot of speculation, but when you looked at what we saw out on the field, they look plodding and slow on offense and defense. The defensive front and the linebacker group just is not good enough to compete against the better teams that are remaining on their schedule. And on offense, even though they got Katron Allen involved and Devontae Ross involved, they still have so many issues at wideout and tight end, and they have more answers. They have more questions than answers, and that's the biggest problem.
That's absolutely the truth. You started to see it against UCLA last week on the defensive side, but you could maybe chalk it up to, okay, they just lost Tony Rojas, a little bit of a hangover from the Oregon game. It's bad, but there's time for it to get better. It didn't get better today. There was no pass rush. They had 2 sacks, and both times it was Preston Stone literally just falling over himself on scrambles that he shouldn't have taken off. The defensive line was thin coming in, but Zane Durant, Denai Dennis Sutton, those guys have not been as impactful as you needed them to be or expected them to be. Zane was a preseason All-American, and he might not even be All Big Ten at this point right now. He's not contributing. It's just a problem. In the offensive side, Drew Allar in his 3rd year as a starter with all the tools in the world, clearly something hasn't clicked, whether it's just him, whether it's the decision-making, whether the coaching staff has failed him. All of those things are on the table, but it was never as good as it could have been, and the talent seems to be there. James Franklin said in his post-game press conference when asked about the wide receivers, we know and we think that they're capable of doing it, but they haven't done it yet, and you're right. Too many questions, not enough answers.
Yeah, they block a punt early in the game, get momentum. Drew throws just a terrible pass to Liam Clifford, who's in the game.
Yeah.
That really kind of set the tone. They made so many mistakes. They had so many penalties, drop passes, Kyron Hudson. They invested heavily in this team, and they're not going to get any return on their investment. Drew's career is over at Penn State.
It is.
Ethan Grunkmeyer is going to be the guy moving forward. And I covered the last 3-9 team at Penn State in 2003, as did Joe Hermit. That's where this season now is headed. If you look at what's left on the schedule and a new quarterback coming in and all the issues that they have, it's pretty easy to paint a 3-9 picture. So that's why when the change comes, I don't think anyone's going to be surprised, and James Franklin might actually be relieved.
Yeah, I think. Look, James Franklin, Johnny and I talked about it on Thursday. He's probably going to go somewhere and win somewhere else in another situation. But this is just, you can't go on like this. It's tough to watch him walk into the locker room under all the scrutiny, all the booing that he's had after a long career here. But it's just gotten to that point. And to your point about maybe it's 3-9, there aren't any layups left on the schedule. Your layups were UCLA and Northwestern.
You just played the layup games, and you lost them both. So
and now you have a backup quarterback going into what we know is a really tough environment at Iowa and a night game next week. Nebraska is one of the easier games you think, but they're playing well.
No chance.
And they've got a good quarterback there. Even Rutgers has an offense that looks like it has a little bit of life this year. So it's a bad situation, and it could only maybe get worse.
You have to wonder about all the veterans on this team that they were invested in, and kind of where their heads at as far as their futures and what they want to do. But I think at least for them, they're not going to have to worry about a postseason. Yeah, I think the season's coming to an end when the regular season ends, and it's just a question of what's the effort going to be like over the remainder of the season, because the effort has not been great when it mattered.
No, it hasn't, and that's why this is so shocking, because this team, there are millions and millions of dollars into this team right now, and I mean everybody, including us, were singing their praises coming into the year, and I don't think it was unjustified. And it's just gotten to a point where it's hard to believe.
It's stunning. 2 months ago he was in Vegas talking about this being his most complete team, and I kind of believed him. But it's a failure at just about every level. I mean, there's blame to go around, and when there's blame to go around, it just means the guy that's leading the program has got to go.
Yeah, he's got to be the scapegoat.